Okay, so what I'm going to show you guys next is how to install RethinkDB. RethinkDB is a pretty awesome database solution in my opinion. I just really like it. They're really active and on top of their work, and they provide really nice query syntax commands. Specifically, there's a JavaScript driver, but the reql syntax I tend to like. They also have a really cool UI that comes with it. I'm just a big fan of it. So, anyways, let's install RethinkDB. I just pulled up some of these commands. This is right off of their website. So I think this is going to be sufficient for what we want. It's kind of a mouthful here. So this will be in the blog post, so you guys can just pull it from there. So let me go for it. I'm just going to paste the whole thing. See if this works properly. Looking decent. Let's see here. Okay, so now we're going to update the package manager. We're going to install RethinkDB. Yes. Cool. So RethinkDB startup service is installed but disabled. To enable it, follow the instructions in the guide located at RethinkDB docs. So let's try starting the, well, let's first see if anything did start. So I'm just going to list out some of the processes, and let's check for the word rethink. So no, there's no RethinkDB process going on as far as I can tell. Cool. So let's try to start the server. No instances defined in RethinkDB instances. So I think we have to follow this guide here a little bit before. I think there's a configuration that we have to do, so let's just check this out. Alright, start up with init.d. Okay, so we have to copy that init file, it looks like. Copy the sample configuration file using the configuration file documentation as a guide to customize it. If you don't have the .conf, alright, so let's grab this. Let's grab this. So I guess this is the RethinkDB configuration file. Looks like pretty much everything's commented out, but I guess it needs to be there. So let's just see where we need to put that. etc RethinkDB. Instances. Cool. Should be easy enough. etc RethinkDB instances. Let's see what's going on in this folder. Nothing is going on. So I guess we want to create a file called instance1.conf. Let's make sure that's what they call it here. Default.conf. Alright, so let's just call it instance1. Instance1.conf. let's go ahead and paste the default. I don't know why they make you do this. It seems like they could just provide that for you anyways. Let's make sure our file looks good. Looks good to me. Okay. So I think it's saying we create the conf file. Do we need to uncomment anything? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, they just copy sample, call it instance1, and then they're using the restart command. So I was using the start command. But all right, so we installed RethinkDB. We created a conf file as per their help guide, and let's run the RethinkDB restart command. The instance is not running. There is no PID file. We'll only listen on local network interfaces. To expose RethinkDB on the network, add the bind all option to RethinkDB, starting instance, log, recursive. Okay, so I think it actually is started, even though that error message is a little misleading. So let's take a look through here real quick. Okay, so you guys saw how I listed that out before, and we didn't have anything related to RethinkDB. But if I grep through it, we now have a number of processes running that have RethinkDB, and you can see them right here. So there's 3 daemons running. I don't know exactly the specifics there, but it looks like we have our RethinkDB server up and running, which is a good sign. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how I can prove to you guys that it's up and running, because we don't have any means to interface with it quite yet. So one of the things RethinkDB does is it creates this like web app. It's basically a user interface where you could interact with your data. Let me try to find that real quick for you. I think it's in the, I believe it's in the comp file. So so yeah, they talk about like the log files, bind all. We want bind all. So let's just go ahead and do that. What else do we want? There should be. Oh yeah, they call it the web administration console. That's what we want, but I don't know where that lives. So I think it just lives on some port, but I don't know which port that is. First off, all right, so I just made a change to where the RethinkDB server binds to, so I'm going to restart. Cool, looking good. I want to find where that web admin portal is. So let's just go to our Nginx website that we set up previously. Yeah, that's still working fine. So RethinkDB has a default port, but I forget what that is. So you can connect to it at localhost 8080. assuming you've kept the default port 8080 and it's running on your local machine. So problem, we have Nginx running on 8080. And you're going to typically want your web server running on 8080, so I don't know why they did that, but let's see here. Interesting. Are they differentiating? Let's see here. Okay, so Nginx running on 80. And RethinkDB is running on 8080. I would change that default port. Let me see here, because you don't want that running on 8080. Driver port, cluster port. Yeah, it's right here. So the default is 8080, but that's a horrible idea. So throw it on 3000. Hopefully 3000 is publicly available, should be, unless IP tables gives us trouble. So I just changed, it's right in the config file. You can change the port that we expose the web admin tool on, and I just changed it from 8080 to 3000 because 8080 you usually want that to point to your website. So I'm going to restart again, and now I'm going to go to 3000 and it should be there. Yeah, perfect. All right, so this is so what RethinkDB does is RethinkDB is running its database server, and that's on a port. And the port that that's on, we specified in here. What did it say? The port receiving connections. Yeah, so it's 28015, and then the port for receiving on other nodes 29015. So when you're interfacing, when you're writing your software that's going to connect to the database, you're going to use these servers here, these ports here. So for me, I write node typically, and node needs to talk to RethinkDB, and I pass it the 28015 if that's what I'm going to use. But one of the cool things RethinkDB does is they offer you this great web app, and this web app is running on its own port. It's a web server. I don't know. It's probably using Nginx. Yeah, connected to Nginx. So that's great because we already have Nginx. So we don't have like a million web server software servers running. So it stands this up for you, which is really nice. And I specified the port. You would not want to make this public. Right now this is public, meaning a user can just come here and start playing around with our data. I mean, they could create they could create a new database if they wanted. So typically this would not be publicly exposed, but I did two things to expose it. I did the this bind all here. Typically it exposes it only to it does some fancy stuff under the hood where you can only get it from localhost if you're like requesting and you're in the server. But I did bind all, which means it's exposing it publicly. So you would not want to do that. Basically what you want to do is you want to set up some sort of proxy server or something that hides this dashboard behind a credentialed behind credentials essentially. I actually use RethinkDB, and the way we handle that is we stand up this page on our box, and you can only access it if you make requests for this page, but you're passing it a username and a password that get authenticated on the back end. Otherwise, it'll just return a 500 or something. So yeah, you want to not expose this publicly, but for the sake of this example here, I don't want to set up that whole credentialed aspect, so I just exposed it publicly. But yeah, this is one of the cool things about RethinkDB is like they give you this this web interface that's just really nice. So as you can see here, we have two database, KL, whatever, test, and we can just add a table if we want. Users, create table, and that should propagate under here. So yeah, and it gives you information about the table. It gives you this rolling stats thing, which is really cool. But what I like is the data explorer. So what I could do is r.db, or the name of my dashboards. KL. And you have to know the query language, but once you know the query language, it's cool. So we did r.db.table. We should be able to pass it users, and it should pull up that table. So it did pull up the table, but there's nothing in the table, so there's nothing to display there. I don't know the exact command for inserting. Yeah, it looks like that. So and then we probably pass it some JSON content. So username Tim, password Fort Knox. Okay, so I think that might insert the document. Yeah. So this is just giving you a diagnostic of what it just did. But so now let's pull up users using the REQL language. There it is. It gives an automatic ID, which is cool. And then we got a user with a username and a password. And you can view it in these different formats. So I don't know, personally, I just think I like the structure for querying a Rethink database is asynchronous. And if you're writing in Node, you really need that. So it just lends itself well. This is a NoSQL database. It's schemaless, document-based. Basically what that means is, okay, we now have a quote-unquote table of users that have ID, passwords, and usernames, but if we wanted to, and again, I can just go in my history here, which I love this. If we wanted to, we could offset the schema. So we have, let's go to table view. So we have a table, and it's not a real table, we're just putting it in that view, but it has ID, password, username. Well, if I just randomly decide to add a new entry to that table, but let's add a new property called MISC. Some stuff. And this is what you can't do with SQL databases, because you'd have to create a new column. I mean, yeah, you can create a new column, but that column has to get propagated across every row. So let's run this. We're inserting. I feel like I just broke something. So let's list. Yeah, so like this is the cool thing. So now we have, we still have our table, but, and they show it like this, but really, this schema has changed across. So really it's an entry of what we call documents, and this is one document right here. So that's kind of like the cool thing about NoSQL databases. Of course, that could create plenty of problems when we look for MISC and there is no MISC. But they're overcomeable. So yeah, it's not a big issue, and I haven't had any issues with RethinkDB. I'm not working with it at scale yet, but it's been pretty good, and it seems like it does handle scale well. And I mean, just look at this tool they give you. This is an open source database software, and this is the best administration tool I've ever seen, hands down. So I mean, I'll just show you guys the source. This is the source of the page. It's all JavaScript. It's a single page app. It's just built amazingly well, and that's because these guys are currently on top of what they're doing. So I've invested in this as a database solution. I've been very happy so far. And there's tons of things I haven't even explored yet in terms of logs and stuff like that. But I hope that shows you guys how to use how to get started with RethinkDB. And I don't have any invested interest either way if you guys use it or not. I personally think it's compelling and I like using it. But so that's how you get started with RethinkDB.